Do you want to be ahead of the game for the latest in arts, music, cuisine, and entertainment across the Middle East's most dynamic capital cities? Al Monitor is proud to launch our City Pulse newsletters, focused exclusively on local news, starting in Riyadh, Dubai, Istanbul, and Doha. Each week, our on-the-ground writers in these cities cover the latest cultural happenings and trends, so you have everything you need to know for the best local experiences. To subscribe for free, go to almonitor.com, that's al-monitor.com, and sign up on our newsletter page.
Welcome back to the Al Monitor Brief. I'm Adam Lucente. Iraq will hold its parliamentary election on November 11th, its sixth since the ouster of Saddam Hussein in 2003. The race pits Prime Minister Mohammed Shia Sudani against his former allies in the State of Law coalition and is being vocally boycotted by Shiite cleric Muqtada Sadr, the winner of the last election in 2021. A number of Kurdish and Sunni parties could likewise play a role in determining the next government. In this episode, I'll take you through the major candidates in the election, what polling shows about who will win and which issues voters care most about, and how the results might impact Iraq's position in the region. Hope you enjoy. More than 7,700 candidates are running on 90 electoral lists for the 329 seats in the parliament. Per the Constitution, the president will nominate a prime minister after the election, who then must be approved by Parliament. The nominee for Prime Minister will be from the largest coalition after the votes are counted, not necessarily the list that received the most votes. The different political parties will vie to form alliances after the results come out, with the hopes of being named to form a government. Iraqi voters tend to vote for parties from their own ethnic and religious communities, and the main electoral lists in the country represent either Shiite, Sunni, or Kurdish constituents, with smaller Christian, Yazidi, and non-denominational parties. The major Shiite-led lists include Sudani's Reconstruction and Development Coalition, former Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki's State of Law Coalition, the Badr Organization, and the Asadakun bloc. Badr and Sadakun are both closely tied to and backed by Iran and have corresponding militias. The main Sunni-led lists include former Parliament Speaker Mohammed Halbusi's Taqaddum Party and the Azam Alliance. The main Kurdish parties are the Kurdistan Democratic Party, which leads the autonomous Kurdistan regional government in northern Iraq, the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan, a rival of the KDP, whose stronghold is in the Soleimani province, and the People's Front, which split from the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan in 2022. Many of these party leaders are familiar with one another. Sudani formed the Reconstruction and Development Coalition after the Coordination Framework, a group of Shiite parties led by Maliki, split up in April. The Coordination Framework burst onto the scene in 2022 when it coalesced around Sudani, propelling him to the premiership after more than a year of gridlock. But fissures later emerged within the group, partly over relations with Iran and its proxy militias in the country. The State of Law coalition favors close ties with Iran and resistance to U.S. pressure on Iraq to move away from the Islamic Republic. Sudani has taken a more middle-of-the-road approach, seeking to balance cordial relations with Iran and the U.S., as well as with the Gulf and the new government in Syria. Take, for example, a law proposed earlier this year to formally integrate the Popular Mobilization Forces, or Hashtashabi, into the official armed forces. The PMF militias formed in 2014 to fight the Islamic State, and many of its components are backed by Iran. The U.S. opposed the law, believing it would solidify Iranian influence in the state. Sudani's government ultimately pulled the law from consideration in late August. Another source of tension was Sudani's participation in the October summit in Egypt on ending the Gaza war. Rivals of his accused him of pursuing normalization with Israel by attending, according to local media reports. Meanwhile, Sadr has been vocally calling for a boycott of the election, in keeping with his 2022 withdrawal from politics. He left the scene after failing to form a government with Sunni and Kurdish parties following his victory in the 2021 election. Sadr now lambasts the entire political system as corrupt. Clashes broke out between his armed group, Soraya as-Salam, and PMF members in Baghdad in 2022, around the time of his announcement. Halbusi, one of the richest businessmen in Iraq, was ousted from office in 2023 by the Supreme Court over a complex legal case in which another lawmaker accused him of forgery. Halbusi was notably one of the politicians who Sadr, a rival of the coordination framework, sought to form a government with after the 2021 elections. An October poll from the Baghdad-based think tank Bayan Center showed the Reconstruction and Development Coalition with 16.7% support, the KDP with 7.6% support, Taqaddum with 7%, State of Law with 6.9%, Sadr with 5.3%, People's Front with 4.8%, and Badr with 3.7%. The center asked respondents about nearly 60 electoral lists, and others had smaller amounts of support. Sudani has been described by some reports as the frontrunner. His campaign has largely focused on development in recent weeks, with the premier pointing to his efforts to reduce dependence on oil and improve infrastructure. Indeed, Iraq inaugurated its first large-scale solar plant in September and is currently implementing a $27 billion project with France's Total Energies to capture gas flares from oil fields and use them for electricity, among other endeavors. Voters are prioritizing a combination of economic and security issues ahead of the election. A May 2025 survey from the Iraqi think tank Rawaq Baghdad showed that 18.5% of respondents said services and the economy are the most important issues to them, more than that of any other issue. In second was security and the border with 14.4%, followed by education and health with 14%, and foreign relations with 10.4%, per the survey. Iraq's poverty rate was 17.5% in 2023, while unemployment was 15.5% last year, according to the World Bank. Electricity issues continue to plague the country, and government power is only available for part of the day, prompting people to rely on fuel-powered generators. The security issues in Iraq include the war on drugs and ISIS's continued, albeit low-level, insurgency. Security around the election itself is another problem. Last week, a vehicle carrying State of Law coalition candidate Amjad Talib As-Samari was fired upon by unknown assailants in the southern province of Basra. The same day, a shooting occurred near the office of a Sadr bloc candidate in Baghdad. Safa el-Mashadani, a candidate for the Sovereignty Alliance of Sunni parties, was killed in a vehicle bombing in Baghdad on October 15th. 3 days later, gunmen opened fire on the office of Azam Alliance candidate Muthana el-Lazawi, south of Baghdad. In late September, an activist claimed there was an assassination plot against Sadr, prompting the cleric's forces to deploy to Basra in a show of force. The election will determine Iraq's position in the region for the near future. Iran is seeking to keep Iraq in its orbit after major losses experienced by Hezbollah and Hamas at the hands of Israel since the Gaza war began, as well as the collapse of Bashar al-Assad's regime in Syria last December. The U.S. under President Donald Trump continues to pressure Iraq in the other direction, and in March declined to renew a sanctions waiver that allowed Iraq to import Iranian electricity. The Trump administration has also upped sanctions on Iran-backed militias in Iraq and was instrumental in pressuring the country to secure the release of Israeli researcher Elizabeth Surkov. The Iran-backed militia Kataib Hezbollah released Surkov in September after more than 2 years of holding her in captivity, where she said she was tortured. Sudani has made some progress in attracting Western investment and would also like to maintain close ties with the Gulf and manage relations with Syria. He notably visited Saudi Arabia last December and has overseen drug-related cooperation with the government in Damascus. A victory by Maliki and co., on the other hand, could push Iraq back towards Iran, potentially harming ties with the Gulf and the West. Thanks for listening to the Al-Monitor Brief. Be sure to follow Al-Monitor for more on the stories impacting the Middle East. Until next time, I'm Adam Lucente.